Thank you so much, Robbie, for agreeing to be with us on the arbitration pitch with Lauren Dakwa. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So, Robbie, tell us a little bit about your journey into arbitration. How did you get here?
So, I suppose it started while I was at university. I studied law at university for my bachelor's degree, and one of the particular areas I enjoyed the most was international law.
Okay.
And at that time, I was thinking, well, how can I form a career out of this? How can I try and practice international law, being quite a niche area of law, which doesn't necessarily have obvious commercial implications.
Right.
But I basically did some searching about which law firms in London practice international law and more international related legal advice, I suppose. And I ended up applying to a few firms and was very lucky enough to get a place at Herbert Smith Freehills for my training contract.
Right.
And during that 2 years, while I was there, I got a good amount of exposure to international arbitration, and quite quickly fell in love with it.
Okay.
And decided that that's what I wanted to do going forward. So then when I qualified as a solicitor here in England and Wales, I basically just applied for international arbitration associate positions in London. And as it happens, LaLive had just opened up their London office at the time. So stars aligned and I applied here and thankfully got a place here, and I've been here ever since.
Oh, wow, that's great. Was there a particular area international arbitration you were interested in?
So, I mean, originally when I first started my training, as I said, I wanted to do international law, and I actually thought I wanted to do public international law, which is perhaps one of the more difficult practice areas to get into. And I remember it was my first day of my training contract, my first day in my first office job, and this case came in, onto our desk, and it was like a public international law advice, and I was like,
Bingo.
This is amazing, this is great, this is what life's going to be like. I've since learned that the public international law work doesn't quite come around as often as that necessarily, but I thought, this is great, and through that I got into the investment arbitration world, which I really enjoyed, and so I basically tried to pursue that. And investment arbitration and commercial arbitration quite often go together in terms of firms that practice those types of arbitration, and so I've ended up doing both, and I enjoy both.
Absolutely, that's great. Okay, Robbie, a lot of young people are of the view that to have an arbitration practice, a successful one, you must have been appointed as an arbitrator at least once, and what are your thoughts on that with regards to being appointed as an arbitrator? Is it as much of a sprint as people are making it look like, or it's a whole process like a marathon?
Well, at least here in London, I mean, I haven't been appointed as an arbitrator yet, so I think in my view, it's a bit of a marathon.
Right.
And you have to build up the experience and I suppose the profile in the market that you're in to get those appointments. And there's probably some routes that are maybe quicker than others, but I mean, I would recommend, as far as I'm concerned, that it's really good to get a foundation as working as counsel first, if you can, because then you build up all the skills and experience required to then eventually get your first arbitrator appointment, and hopefully more appointments after that. If you're lucky, I've been quite lucky to be able to work as arbitral secretary as well as counsel on cases, so I've actually managed to see both sides of the tribunal, as it were. And I think that's a really good way to get arbitrator type experience if you can, because you at least get that insight into the deliberations of tribunals. So yeah, I think that's a good way to do it, but it's not a sprint, I don't think. At least in London, it's very difficult and competitive, I think, to get that first appointment. But hopefully once you do, then you're on your way.
Yeah. And you mentioned some skills that they should have. Are there some in particular you like to mention that, young people should have to fit the profile of being appointed as an arbitrator or climbing the ladder as an arbitration practitioner?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the core skill is being able to express yourself in a structured and clear manner, both in writing and orally. I think that's really the hallmark of a disputes lawyer, but in particular in arbitration, where a lot of our submissions are written. And then that will obviously feed into when you're an arbitrator and you end up having to draft awards, well-reasoned awards as well. So that kind of analytical ability and the ability to communicate well is a core skill. And then from there, it's really kind of building on experience. I mean, I think there's a tendency for young practitioners to think they need to know everything at the outset. You know, need to know every area of law in intricate detail. I actually don't think that's necessarily the most important skill. It's obviously important, but to have the solid foundation of your technical ability is the most important thing. And then as you gain experience, you'll become acquainted with different areas of law that are actually required in your practice.
Right. So that will mean that, people want to do an LLM in particular areas so that they are known to have the expertise. But you're saying that you should actually be okay with learning on the job and finding out the different areas of your particular practice as you go along.
Yeah, I mean, I think if that's an option available to you, I appreciate it's not.
Right.
It's not.
So
it's not always that easy.
Yeah.
But I mean, my experience has been, I don't have a master's myself. I went straight from my bachelor's degree into my vocational training and then my training contract at a law firm. So, my academic qualification, I suppose, is a lot less than some people you see in arbitration who have maybe 2 or 3 master's degrees. But I think the trade-off is that I have probably more. I traded that for practical experience on the job, where I think you do learn invaluable skills that maybe you don't pick up in an academic setting. So I don't think it's necessary to have an LLM, but I appreciate that a lot of people will find themselves in a position where maybe they haven't managed to get that first position yet in a firm or in private practice, and so then it maybe makes sense for someone to build up their academic expertise, which may then help them get that first position. So probably, without meaning to cop out too much, it might depend a little bit on the circumstances.
Yes. So just staying on that point, talking about different areas of expertise and things that you can do to make sure that you gain the knowledge. That's if you're not in a firm where they are practicing arbitration actively, or probably you're not working on any arbitration cases. Are there any courses you suggest that young people should take, or any certificate programs they should
I mean, I think there are plenty of formal courses on offer from some of the big arbitration institutions. I mean, for young people in particular, you've got institutions like Young Ecker, which offer great training programs. I myself have been involved with London VYAP or VYAP, which is
very young arbitration
exactly. So it's kind of targeted towards the junior associate end of the sort of career progression ladder, as it were. I think getting involved in the activities of those institutions is a really good way to build up your skills, because there'll be substantive training type seminars and webinars and maybe training workshops as well involved in those groups, but also building a network, which I think is quite important for young practitioners and quite fun as well. So I certainly enjoyed my time on the committee of London VAP, and I'm still going to some of their events today.
Great.
So I think that's a really good way of getting involved if your firm doesn't maybe do as much arbitration as you'd like to do.
How does networking translate to work? You mentioned networking, and I'm sure people are wondering, okay, once I get the contacts and I have a big stack of cards, how does that translate to actual work where I get counsel work or appointments or tribunal secretary?
So again, I think it's a bit of a marathon probably rather than a sprint. I mean, you can have as many business cards as you like, but probably it's the accumulation of experience plus contacts plus through having contacts and reputation in the market, which is going to over time cumulatively contribute to eventually bringing in work to your firm. I mean, again, I'm maybe not quite at that stage of my career yet where I'm having clients calling me up every day or every week, but
Right.
I think the process of trying to build a profile and essentially get to know who your peers are in the market, because it's, for better or for worse, it's often those peers who are going to end up in-house at clients, for example, or referring work from other firms.
Mm-hmm.
So I think just knowing people who are in similar positions to you and who are your contemporaries is really useful. And I think that's actually an important point, is to not just kind of try and make friends with or be connected with all the kind of the big names who you see in GAR every week.
Yeah.
I think it's actually really important to kind of connect with the people at your level as well, because hopefully everyone's plan is by the time they progress further up their career, those other people will have done the same, and that's when I think the connections will really kind of bear fruit. So
absolutely,
that's the plan.
Absolutely. Now, Robbie, tell us. You can look into the camera now. Can you give us about 3 pointers for young arbitration practitioners who are wondering how they can build up their career, how they can, make it to the next phase of their arbitration practice? Any 3 things they should do, any 3 things they should look out for, any 3 skills they should build on just for this field?
Yeah. So hi. So I think my first one is have confidence in your own abilities. I mean, if you think you've done the work at, academically and in practice to be in the position you want to be, then I think have the confidence to apply for the role that you think you deserve. You won't always get every position you apply for, but if you think you deserve it, go for that position and don't undersell yourself by not having the confidence to go for it. So I think self belief is an important one. The kind of flip side of that is the self awareness to know where you stand in the market, and know what you don't know, what you need to improve, what you need to learn. I think that's an important skill. And I think a really good way of tying those together and kind of framing your own career is to look at the people who are maybe 3 to 5 years ahead of you in your career progression, or who you see as 3 to 5 years ahead of you. It's a tendency to look at, again, look at the big names or the senior partners at your firm, or the the high flyers as you see them, and try to emulate them. But really, I think that you can fall into a trap of losing sight because they're too far away, and by the time we all get there, the world may have changed completely. So I think I personally find it useful to look at people who are just slightly ahead of you and just try and emulate them. Pick what you see as their best traits, professionally or personally or both, and just try and pull them together into your own career personality, and just try and be that personification of all those good traits together, and hopefully that person you're trying to be becomes a great arbitration practitioner.
Wow, that's great, Rob. That's great. So, just before we let go of you, I just want to find out, if you were not an arbitration practitioner, what would you have been doing?
Good question. What would I be doing? I'd like to say lying on a beach somewhere, but probably that's unrealistic. No, I think I really enjoyed modern languages as well at university. I didn't study them, but I did live in Madrid in Spain for a year during my university, and while I was there, I kind of learnt my Spanish. And I think, in another lifetime, I would have studied modern languages, and I'd speak 5 languages by now. But sadly, it's not quite as many as 5. But I do still try and learn new languages every now and then, on as much as I can with a career in London. But that's kind of a pipe dream that never happened, I suppose.
That's fine. You still have time,
Yeah, I suppose
you
so.
do have time. Yeah. Thank you so much, Robbie, for joining us.
Thank you.
And we are so grateful that we had him on the arbitration pitch. and we look forward to our next interview. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.